haven't checked out a Cougar mouse for a long while, but with the 62-gram small mouse and the Airblader, it looks like they're trying to enter the competitive scene a bit. So let's see how they did. Here's a look at the shape. You'll note the hump is more toward the back. Gradual slope toward the buttons, giving it a button height of about 1.93 centimeters. It's about 11.7 long and about 5.7 wide. That's about 4.61 inches by 2.24. And the height is about 3.6 centimeters or 1.42 inches. So despite being small, it's actually pretty wide. That's because these sides kind of bulge out a little, kind of like the Logitech G305. And if you look at them together, you can see the designer took a lot of inspiration from the G305, but stretched it a little, making the hump more toward the back. That's the easiest way to explain it, I guess. It's a modified G305. They feel different, but I think these cutouts have a huge part in that. I think they're there to reduce weight, alter shape, and make it look like a gamer mouse, even without RGB on it. In the hand, these feel okay. Even gripping in palm, they don't feel bad, except for one little spot here. No side buttons on the right side, and to keep the design symmetrical, they've kept this wall very low at the front, which is fine on the thumb side, because generally people don't hold the mouse that far forward, but my ring finger has very little room to hold onto the mouse here. This is my one big complaint about the shape. There's just not enough room here. That said, if you're using 131 grip, it feels fine. I think there is enough room. So let's talk about the grips. Given the size, I would have said it's suitable to hands that are about 19 by 9.5 centimeters, or 7 by 3.7 inches. But my hands are smaller than that, and even I have trouble getting a good grip. That's palm or fingertip. So for those, I would say hands under 17 centimeters maybe. I think you actually need a pretty aggressive claw grip for this one. When you hold it like that, you do get room for your ring finger. And this backplate feels nice in the palm. Although that grip does block range of motion at the back a little. Still, that's the grip I think it's intended for. And it feels okay in my hand, so between 17.5 and 19.5 centimeters should be okay for this mouse. Looking at the base, you can see it's a pretty safe shape. It is just that cutout on the right side that I think upsets the grip so much. If they took note of Zowie's design where the walls are high, and the buttons are nestled inside away from the fingers, that would have opened it up to a lot more grips. Like the G305. Here they are next to each other and the Death Adder. So yeah, very similar size. If you know the G305, you should know what to expect. Otherwise, it's a small mouse, kind of bordering on medium. It's lighter than the G305 at about 62 grams, but that's the other thing, it's wired. So how are the cables Cougar used? They're a little stiff and heavy by today's standards, but much better than before. Personally, in a bungee, I'm fine with this, but I'd say that's an area they could improve. The skates are large and pretty smooth. Not the smoothest, but not an issue either. Now let's talk about the specs. They're advertising this with the exclusive Cougar Bounce-On tension system, which uses a metal spring to eliminate the random bounce between the button and switch. How does that feel in use? Pretty good. Not the best, but decent enough. It's somewhere in between an optical switch and an Omron. Funnily enough, they feel better than what's on this copy of the G305. Here's a listen to the difference between them along with the others. So because I don't like lab wheels, I'd give the win to the Cougar over the G305. Apparently they're using a ratcheted wheel. The steps feel a bit soft, but they're noticeable, so should be okay. I think it's a pretty good balance, but depends what you like. The side buttons, like the G305, have a bit too much travel. They feel pretty snappy on the click, but the actual travel needs to be reduced. For latency, just doing the usual bump test, it appears to be about 3 or 4 milliseconds slower than the G903, but that's okay. Anything around 4 milliseconds is fine. Next, sensor performance and how the mouse feels in game. It's a 3389 optical, so should be all good. Rocket jumping a little uncomfortable, mainly because of the shape, but flicking the mouse as fast as I can't make it spin out, even when tilt slamming it. Zooming in for the sniper test. It tracks pixel by pixel, no problem. So in game, I didn't have any issues aiming with the sensor performance. Quick test for acceleration or deceleration. All good there. In the 1000 FPS test, it looks like it moves slightly before the Logitech G903, which is most likely because of the 2000Hz polling rate. Can't tell the difference in game, it's too slight, but pretty cool to see. All good in the line tests, no jitter, angle snapping or skipping, so it's the usual solid performance from the 3389, and Cougar's implementation of it is pretty good. Here's a look at the software. Usual DPI changes, 100 to 16,000, in steps of 50. You have a sniper setting to lower the DPI on the fly. The polling rate is 2000 Hz by default. Liftoff height is under 1 DVD even on the high setting, but you can use that with the surface calibration if needed. Mine is fine by default though, so you may not need to do this. You can bind the keys to different things as well, including media, so pretty straightforward, decent software. Now if you're here for the dual blader, listen, it's a heavy mouse by today's top mice standards, has all these extra buttons and adjustments. This is not a mouse made for competitive gaming, unless it's MMO. My left trigger seems a bit loose, otherwise it's okay, but not really for this channel. I would rather focus on the Airblader. So in conclusion, the Airblader is a decent entry into the competitive market, but I don't think it would be considered a top contender in many circles. It's mainly the shape with a lack of space for the ring finger, unless you're using claw palm grip. The features are good, but it could do with a more flexible cable. But when you think about it, the overall feeling is pretty cheap, because it is pretty cheap. That's the point. It's only about $40 USD. There are cheaper options, and other than the more expensive sensor, it would be hard to choose this over the Razer Viper Mini, and that shape issue would make me reach for the G203 instead. Still, it's good to see Cougar making an effort to get into competitive, and I think with a little more work, they could get there, mainly shape and cable improvements. So I hope that helps. Thanks to Cougar for sending these out for testing. All thoughts are my own and not influenced in any way. Usual links below if you want to help support what I do. And as always, subscribe, like and share this video, and I'll catch you in the next.